Welcome, everyone, to the Rosie and Bill Show. Our guest this week is an award-winning comedian who I had the pleasure of seeing perform just a couple of weeks ago at Soul Joel's right here in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and he put on a phenomenal show. So let's welcome to our show comedian, writer, actor, and a really nice guy too, Graham Kay. Graham, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure, Graham, and I've been looking forward to this since I met you that night. It was great seeing the show and also having a chance to chat with you, afterwards, and appreciate you agreeing to join us tonight.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah, no, I'm looking forward to. I've been looking forward
When
to.
a stranger approaches me at nighttime after a show and asks me to you know call them, I'll do it.
All
I'll
right,
always
you
do
know
it.
what? Not everybody does that. I appreciate that.
hmm hmm
Yeah, and it was kind of a dark corner we were standing in too after the
That's right.
show.
You lured me. You lured me into a dark corner,
Yeah,
and
didn't.
you frankly wouldn't let me pass until I agreed to do this. So, uh,
Yeah, well, I was a
yeah,
little bit upset by the fact that you were actually taller than me. I'm 6'3" and you had me, and I had my boots on too. So,
yeah, yeah. I'm going through a Doc Martin phase, so I'm about 6'5" on the streets these days, and it's good. It's good.
hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we also appreciate our first and longest running sponsor of the show, Tom and his team of insurance professionals at the Malin Agency. If world class customer service and doing business with someone you can trust is important to you, give Tom and his team a call today for all your insurance needs.
I hope I don't have to get into an actual fight though, because I will lose, no matter how tall the person is. Um, Very soft, very weak, scared, but it's important to have an aggressive exterior
Yeah,
so you don't get taken advantage of,
yeah, absolutely.
Because if
Well, you
someone
know what
pushes me,
then?
they'll find out.
I'm sorry I said you were a nice guy then in the intro. I apologize for that. I should have said mean guy, tough guy, rough guy, something like that. Maybe I can go back after and
hmm
edit that out.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Well, I'll tell you, Graham, normally what I like to do is, kind of turn the clock back and take a look back at where things started. But I can't do that right now. I'm going to come back to it in just a couple of moments because there was something I saw today on Facebook multiple times on multiple pages that I just had to ask you about because to me it was breaking news because I hadn't seen it before today. But next February, there's going to be a Nate Land cruise with Nate Bargatze and a host of comedians, including you.
That's
So
right.
how cool is that to be in there on that cruise? It looks like it's going to be a phenomenal time.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm excited to do it. Nate's the best, great guy, funniest comedian working today, I think, and he's highest grossing comedian last year, and it's a lot of fun. It'll be fun to be on a cruise, get paid to go to Mexico, tell some jokes. Yeah, so it's like so what it is just like he has like 10 comedians or so, including him as a headliner, and there's shows throughout the day. I think it's like a 3, 4 day cruise. And and it goes from I forget where it leaves, but
I think it was
I
Tampa Bay.
yeah, yeah, and then goes to Mexico. And so if you're on the cruise, you get to see comedy and also be on a cruise. So it's like a fun, you know, fun
Yeah.
balance or added thing. Yeah.
And for those of us in the Northeast, because I'm in suburban Philadelphia, I know you're in New York, February, not exactly the, prime time of the year
Yeah.
weather-wise. So couldn't think of a
Yeah.
better way to spend a few days in February next year.
February is the worst. It's the worst month. I'm from Canada. I just I mean I've been in New York for a long time now, but yeah, February is like March you have hope. January it's still new, you know. February's tough. Real tough. It's the only month where I'm like, oh, people in California, in Florida. They got us on that. They got
Yeah.
1 month that is better for sure.
Yeah, I think the only thing, at least here in Philadelphia, that we have to look forward to this February is the Super Bowl since our Eagles are in it. But if it wasn't for that, there really
Yeah,
wouldn't be much wouldn't be much going on.
yeah, yeah. You need the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl for your lives to be worth living. Uh,
That is a true story
yeah,
right
yeah,
there. And,
yeah.
and you were just in
In
Pottstown recently.
February, outside is great. You know, those other months are great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, now, Graham, you just mentioned a moment ago that you're from Canada. So if I
Mhm.
go back to kind of where I started, and if we were to turn that clock back and kind of go back to those early days, because you were born in Ottawa, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay,
Born and
so
raised.
what was life like for young Graham up in Ottawa, Canada?
It's great. Great place to grow up. I grew up downtown. It's about 1 million people. Um, you know, very sort of diverse place. It's the capital of Canada, so you know everyone's pretty well educated because they all work for the government. So you know, there's like it's a I don't know, it was a very cosmopolitan place to grow up, um, and it was very walkable. No one in my neighborhood had a like drove a car. Like our parents drove cars, but like when we were teenagers, we like refused to get a driver's license. It was like a badge of honor not to have a driver's license, and you could just walk everywhere. It was like it was weird. It was very weird.
Wow.
And I didn't, yeah. And then like I didn't get a. I bought my first car when I moved to LA when I was 32 years old. Because after that I lived in New York. I moved to New York when I was like 26, and then I moved to Toronto for 3 years, and then I moved to LA when I was 32 years old. And I lived there for a couple years, decided I didn't like it, and moved back to New York. But yeah, it's a great place to grow up. We had like block parties. We had like all the dads would like we would like get police to like put up barriers on either side of the block, and like
Oh, nice.
all the dads would bring out their barbecues in the summer, obviously, and we'd like have games and stuff, and DJs and bands and stuff, and then we would have you know, you'd be biking around. Everyone hung out in their front porch. Everyone would be like, if you weren't wearing your helmet, someone else's mom would yell at you and say that they're going to tell your mom. In the winter, we would have or New Year's Eve, all the parents would have like a big New Year's Eve party and at somebody's house, and then you would draw straws to see which parent would take the kids sledding at
Oh,
night because that was a tradition. All the kids would go sledding around. There's like a little park with a hill, and Willie, like the African dude, the African daddy always draw like the short straw, and he was like hated the cold because he's from Africa, so he always had to walk these like 10 kids at like 10 at night in January, January 1st or whatever, December 31st to the park. It was very funny. Every year it would happen. Willie would just bundle up and like be swearing under his breath and walk us to the park. Yeah,
well,
it was
somebody
great.
had to do it.
Yeah, it was great. Had a real like sense of community and yeah. Ottawa's great. Ottawa's great. It's very, you know, it's a little boring. It's all you know, government people, so it's like these are, you know, usually bright, educated people, but kind of like I don't know, people who want to know what the rest of their life is going to be until they die, and
Hmm.
they like security. You know, like there's not an art scene, and I just sort of was
Okay.
always kind of like a weirdo, you know, and I kind of always felt weird in Ottawa. And then when I like went to Montreal for the first time for a hockey tournament when I was 16, I was like, this is what I'm talking about. There's like weirdos everywhere and music, and I was like, okay, so I got to find a city like this. And that's why I think I love New York so much. Like I love a place with like different types of people. Ottawa's such like a one horse town
Hmm.
that it wasn't. I love it. I love it. I love it like a brother that's different than you, but you
Hmm.
love your brother. You know,
No,
if that makes
absolutely.
any
I
sense. Yeah.
I get it. So now you just said you love it like a brother, and I know that your brother, you've got a very special relationship with your brother,
Yeah,
and it's meant a lot to you both personally and professionally, hasn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, well, yeah, he's so my brother is like fairly profoundly autistic. You know, it's difficult to describe, but he is fairly independent, can talk, and he has a part-time job, a couple hours a week, where he sets up chairs at a pub before they open. And he's a great guy, but he's like he wouldn't be able to survive if he didn't have help. Uh, but he but we talk every day on we he FaceTimes me every day, and we pretend that we are Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street. That's how I start every single morning of my life. At 10 a.m. he calls me, and so I wrote a one-man show about it, sort of like stand up, but a little bit more with a beginning, middle, and end.
Mhm.
And it has a little more emotion in it. It's not just jokes all the way through. It's maybe like 70% as funny as a stand-up hour, but it has more of emotion in it. And they call it like a fringe show is what they would call it. One man show, one person show, or a fringe show. Those are the names of that kind of show.
Hmm.
And so they, you know, I wrote a show about that because trying to represent what it's like to be a sibling. He's my only sibling. I don't have anyone to help me with him when my parents get older, and when I was young, he was my only sibling, only person that I could, you know, talk to, other than like my if my parents are being crazy, I couldn't be like, parents are crazy, right? But I still had to share. I had to play by myself and share. So I was like an only child who had to share kind of thing.
Wow.
But I I love my brother very much, and he's probably the person I love the most in the world. But there's no one out there talking about what it's like to be a sibling of somebody with a disability like that you have to take care of. So I wrote a show for those people and for family members, for parents too. And I brought it to a big fringe festival in Europe called the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and got a bunch of five-star reviews. It's the biggest fringe festival in the world. Um, and then now, because I have all those good reviews, we're going to bring it off Broadway to the Soho Playhouse in New York City in
Oh,
April
wow.
for Autism Awareness Month.
Yeah,
So
and the
that's
show's
going to be
Pete and Me,
exciting.
right?
That's right. It's called Pete and Me. Yep.
Yeah, because I know, Graham, the night that you were at Soul Joel's a few weeks back, that was a benefit for some folks too. And I know that some of the stories and things you shared really I could tell, really had a positive impact on the folks there that night as
Oh,
well.
that's great. Yeah. I did. Yeah, you saw Pete and Me.
Yeah.
That's basically the show. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was phenomenal. So I look forward to hearing more about that. And for the folks watching, if you get a chance to see Graham do that wherever it is, you definitely want to catch it. And now a couple minutes ago, you talked about kind of when you went in Montreal for a hockey tournament, you kind of felt
Mhm.
comfortable, in that scene and that vibe. So when did comedy enter the scene for you? When did you realize you might have a knack for making people laugh or, kind of getting into that arena?
Basically, like I like always wanted to do it. I just love comedy. Like people love music. I like comedy, and um, it was always in the back of my head, but I just thought I didn't know how to start, or I'm in Ottawa. There's no show business in Ottawa, and so I was like. I don't know. There was a comedy club, and I did an amateur night. I did pretty well at it. You know, I mustered up the courage, did it, and then my friend hooked me up with a part-time summer job in New York, and I thought, okay, I'm like 26, 25 at the time, or whatever I was, maybe 26. I was like, let me go down to New York because a summer in New York doing comedy would be like 2 years in Ottawa or anywhere else.
Hmm.
So I'll catch up because I already felt like I was getting a little long in the tooth age-wise to start comedy. So I did that, and it was it was it was a lot of fun. I started doing open mics, and then I got fired from that job. 'Cause I was doing logistics for a rich kid summer camp, sending kids like
Huh.
to Europe and stuff. And I sent a kid to the wrong city in Italy, and so they fired me. And then I was like, I had already paid my rent for the month, so all I needed was food money. So um, I just did like weird odd jobs off Craigslist, like helping people like hang a TV or something. And then I got a job at a restaurant, and then I just ended up staying for 5 years in New York. And I got like addicted to stand up. And one thing led to another, and I just started meeting people, making friends, making my own community. And I loved the city. Yeah. And then it was over. But then I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a comedian the rest of my life. After like about a year of doing that. There's like a year when you first start when you're like, am I actually going to possibly waste like 5 years of my life trying to do this, or
Hmm.
or is it just going to be like a fun thing, like how it, like like I just do on the side sometimes. But with comedy, you kind of have to go all in because it's hard to get better unless you're really going all in. So I just kept waiting tables, and I mean, I had a job with the Canadian government before that, working overseas, and I quit that to pursue comedy basically because it was eating me up. I had already done an open mic once, and I just like when I was 20, and then I had a job overseas, and I was just like thinking about it too much. I knew I had it to try. I knew I wasn't married yet. I didn't have a mortgage. I was kind of a free agent in life, and I had to try before, that those things happened. So um, yeah, it's been awesome. It's been good.
Well, Graham, during that time you mentioned in New York when you were really getting into it more and more, was there any particular moment or event when you kind of had an epiphany, or is it just something just kind of clicked where you're like, yeah, this is definitely it. This isn't going to be, I am going to do this. I have what it takes to do this.
Not really, no. I think it's like a slow burn. There's no like movie moment, magic moment where you get a big break and you do really well, and then the king of show business puts a crown on your head. It's just um like slowly realizing that you are good and that people who are at your skill level are making a good living, or at least making a living. So you're like, well, if I keep doing it, I don't see why I shouldn't be making a living if they're making a living. Like the way I told my dad, uh, what I told my dad when I was first starting out was comedy is a little more merit based. It's definitely not it's definitely not a meritocracy. Not the best don't make the most money and get the most famous. But if if you're an actor, it's completely luck, I feel. It's like, do you have the right look? Do you have the right people? Are you the right person, your person for the time? But comedy is like, if you're really good, you might not get a bunch of breaks and be super super successful, but you're probably going to be make a decent living and do what you love. So yeah, and that's kind of what happened. It's been awesome.
Would you say, those first few years, were there any valuable lessons that you learned that really kind of helped, guide you in terms of taking those incremental steps, like you said, a slow burn in your career early on?
I think like just watching, I think being in New York was really helpful because it showed I could see people ahead of me and at my level. And I knew the people ahead of me and I could ask them questions and be like, how do you get into a club? How do you get road work? Road work pays more than like a club in New York, but
Okay.
how do you make a living? How do you get an agent? How do you get maybe be on a commercial for armpit deodorant? How do you do the things? that sustain you. And they would tell you, and then you would also be on stage with them, and you could kind of gauge if you were as good as they were, and how to get better. Because like in anything in life, if you want to get better, you need to be around people that are better than you.
Hmm.
So like if I play pickup basketball, I like to play pickup basketball. And I'm always better when I play with better players. And when I play with like my comedy buddies who are like, not in the greatest shape, they might be hungover. I'm not as good. I'm just not as good. But when I play with like ex-college players and stuff, like I'm better. It's the way it is.
You bring up a great analogy with the pickup basketball. I've heard that from comedians, from athletes. I know even from musicians and songwriters, and I've
My
had some
Yeah,
very talented people tell me they want to be
yeah,
the least talented in the room
yeah.
to grow.
And it's tough. It's tough when you play with your comedy friends because like basketball, because they're usually like really poor athletes, you know.
Yeah, I'm thinking as you're
Yeah.
saying that, I'm thinking in my head of a few that maybe are okay, but maybe a few that maybe not so much. Maybe bowling, but I don't know about
Yeah. Yeah,
basketball.
mostly bowling. Yeah, they're mostly good at bowling.
Yeah, maybe a little pickleball, but what?
My buddy Tom Takar, he's in town from LA visiting, and he's here, and I play basketball with him, and I've been roasting him right now.
Oh,
He's a good basketball player. He just yeah he can somehow shoot threes. Just
well, I'll tell you, Graham, for what it's worth,
yeah.
like I'm not quite as tall as you, but basketball was always a struggle with me because of two things. If there were just two rule changes, it would be a different game for me. One,
Yeah.
if they'd eliminate dribbling, I think it's totally unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
agree.
two, if they would allow tackling. Well, I mean, if I can't jump, the other guys shouldn't be able to jump either.
I think what you're describing is football,
Oh,
and they have that sport. You should play it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
apparently in some basketball games I did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I played
Yeah,
against guys like you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I used to watch those Bill Lambier instructional tapes on how to
Oh
play
yeah, Bill Lambier.
basketball.
Bill Lambier is the man. Yeah.
No
Shortest
skill.
shorts, no skill. High socks, short shorts.
Yes.
Let's go. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So switching gears just a little bit, Graham, what is your writing process like? What does that look like?
It's I think I really lean on talking to friends and just joking around, and then if something comes up, I write it down in my phone, and then I expand that out. Or maybe I'll sit down and expand it, but normally I'll just expand it on stage, just sort of riff on it on stage. So
Has there ever been a joke or a bit that you've written down, and when you go out and you perform it, you're completely blown away by how it's received one way or the other?
yeah, sometimes the part that you think is going to be really funny isn't, and then the part that is just like the setup is way better. You realize that's the best part. So
Okay.
you have to do it in front of an audience. It's not like learning how to play guitar. You can't just practice in your basement. You need an audience to tell you because for whatever reason, the timing and yeah. So
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to what you just said on that because I think that's so important and so true. And I've actually learned that personally, so I'll come back to that in just a little bit. Um, what would you say, Graham, at this point are some of your favorite memories of your career thus far, looking back?
favorite memories, mostly just getting drunk with my friends. Like I think like and like I think the community that is built around comedy is something that I did not anticipate when I started.
Hmm.
You have I just thought you're kind of being like a lone wolf out there, but they're the only people in the world that know what it's like, so you kind of bond with them. And any city I go to, like say it's an opener I don't know and he picks me up from the airport, we usually end up becoming friends and what is that a video? Oh no. No. Oh no. Tom just took a video of me. But um Yeah, it's a like that. Like, my friend just is visiting right now and staying in my spare room, and it's like the best. It's just like when I go to LA, I stay in his spare room, and and you have friends like that all over the country, and it's like a fraternity with a sorority attached, and it's great. It's just I really, you know, there's less drunk days as I get older. It's more dinners, but I love it. That's my favorite part. I don't know. I've been on TV. That's great, but the stuff I think about is like the friendships and stuff.
Well, Graham, I have to tell you, I appreciate you sharing that because, over the years in doing this show, I've had the opportunity to welcome, rock and roll legends, actors, actresses, country music stars, and more comedians over the last few years. And I have noticed, and you just kind of summed it up in what you said, I've noticed this sort of community, this brotherhood and sisterhood of people that are just such great people. And I've
Yeah,
had some great conversations before and after we've turned the recording off, or in that dark corner of Soul Joel's where I pinned you a few weeks ago. But
yeah.
just some of the nicest, most genuine and authentic people. And again, I'm going to come back to that in just a second too. But just a couple more quick questions for you, Graham. What would you say is what's the
Can
craziest thing that's ever happened when you were on stage?
The craziest thing that happened when I was on stage is Um, I did a show when I first started out in Harlem, and I had a I had done some shows for this producer that, his audience was predominantly like black audiences, and they're the best audiences. And if you're the only like white dude on the show, I felt like you have to address it, and I would always take big swings. And if they pay off, the audience is they react. They laugh so much harder than a a predominantly white audience or a regular mixed audience. It's like completely different, and I really loved that, and I wanted that to happen, and it happened before. And then I think Obama had just got elected, and I was like, um, it was a packed bar called Mocha Lounge, still there, and the stage was in the back. It was like a long, skinny bar with 150 people, 200 people, standing room only. And I said, my plan was to go, everyone clap for, and get everyone to clap, and then I was going to go for George W. Bush, because if it weren't for him, the next president for sure, his middle name wouldn't have been a black guy whose name is Hussein. And I was a new comic, not the greatest joke, um, but maybe like the audience would laugh because I tricked them. They would go, "Oh, you got us," and laugh. But I didn't know this at the time, but there was this lady who would sit in the front, and she was like semi-famous, like in that she was part of the show basically. She was a
Okay.
regular customer, but if she didn't like you, she was like the big in she was basically like the hook that would
Ah,
hook you off if you bought. She would like boo you, and then if she booed you, the whole audience would boo you.
ooh,
And so I go for George W. Bush. Everyone stops clapping, and they go, "What?" Because it's Harlem. And then they're like, I go, "Because it's the." And I start to get scared, and you like not believing what I'm going to say, and audiences can sense that, any audience, when you're not sure of what you're saying. And I was like, because the next president would be a black guy. And then I couldn't get to the Hussein part. And then she got up and she goes, "Oh no, you done. You done." And then everyone started going, "Boo." And then I was like, "Okay, okay, you're booing me, but I'm going to continue on, obviously." And then I went to go step towards the mic, and they booed even louder. And then I was like, "What? You want to not going to let me perform?" And then they're
wow.
like, "Boo!" And then I got off stage, and everyone cheered, and I was like, "Well, I can't go on stage now." And then I had to like weave through the audience, and they're like in my face booing, like they're right up against me. I had to like weave through a crowd, and everyone's booing me, and it didn't stop until I was on the stage, out on the street. I got literally booed out of
Wow.
the building. And then I wasn't angry or anything. Like I knew what happened. Like intellect, I think it's one of like the skills if you want to like continue in the arts, especially comedy, is like can you compartmentalize what happened? What happened was my timing was wrong. I took a big swing and I failed. It's not their fault. It's not my fault. I tried and I failed. Okay, on to the next one. And I just went in the subway and went
Wow.
home. It's like I didn't even say goodbye to the booker. Uh, you know, and he had to do, he was the also the host, and he went on stage after me. He was like, "That guy will not be back," and then everyone cheered. Like, and he has to say that to keep the show going. You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean? So it was totally, uh, totally, yeah. It was a good lesson, but also it was nice to like realize that I had thick skin and I
Mm.
didn't take stuff like that personally. And I could see why it went wrong. And yeah, and it's once you can survive that, you getting booed out of the building, you can survive anything. So yeah,
No, absolutely. And I can see where that would definitely be the craziest thing that ever happened. So now I'm going to
yeah.
just kind of flip it a little bit to a different aspect, and that is, what are you most proud of?
Um, I'm most proud of um, just not having a day job for
Mm.
almost my entire adult life. Like for the past 12 years, I haven't had a day job.
Wow.
Having a two-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood in New York City and a car that's paid off and all on comedy. I'm so proud of that. I would like more. I'm working for more, but I have to be like, this is good. Basically my goal in life well, not in life, but when I was like a kid, I would always watch Seinfeld and be like, I want Seinfeld's life in the show Seinfeld, that character Jerry's life. That's so cool. He's a professional comedian. He's got a bunch of wacky friends, and he like is on television like once a year. I was like, and he
Wow.
goes on the road on the weekends. I was like, that sounds good to me, and that's what I've done. Like I have that life, so now it's like on to the next
Yeah, well,
thing. But
I can see where that's something to be proud of, and also to
yeah,
me, kind of the definition of success too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's great. It's great. Life's
So,
good.
what does the rest of 2025 look for you? Anything in the works?
2025, I'm just on the road a bunch. You can find tickets at grahamk.com. Graham is spelled like the cracker, Kay, like the letter. Yeah, so grahamk.com. New tour dates are going to go up there pretty soon. Just figuring that out the back half of the year. But yeah, I'm all over the place. Come see a show. I should be recording a new comedy special in the summer or or spring. So I'm looking to record after I do my off-Broadway run in April in the spring for Pete and me. I'm looking to record it, make it into a comedy special, and try and sell it. But if no one buys it, yeah, because it's kind of like touchy subject for some networks, I'm going to put it on YouTube. Um, and it's the probably the best thing I've ever done. So I'm excited for people to see that. And yeah, I post regularly on YouTube. That channel's growing. It's youtube.com/Graham K Comedy. So subscribe to that. If you have a YouTube account, you can see when the new stuff comes out. It's I wouldn't say it's all clean, but it's
Well, your dry
PG
bar
13.
special's clean.
Yeah, it's PG 13.
Yeah.
Even my dirtiest specials, there's no real. I don't really swear that much. I'm mostly a silly goose. That's what I like the most. So, yeah, yeah, come check me out. Like and subscribe, folks.
Yeah, and I highly recommend your specials, the live from a bowling alley and
Yeah,
stupid jokes and your dry bar. They're all there too
yeah,
on your YouTube. Watch them all multiple times. So, folks, I encourage you to go there, check out what's already there, and be on the lookout for what's coming. So, Graham, I have one last question for you, and I said I was going to come back to this, and it's because I have so much respect for what you do and what your colleagues in the business do. And I love going to Soul
thanks.
Joel's. And I took in my fifth week tomorrow night of the stand-up comedy class at Soul Joel's.
Oh, cool.
And have a graduation show coming up in about a week. And I'm learning like so many things I'm learning, and how, unlike the years I was a musician, I had music that could kind of cover things up when I was singing. It would help me if I forgot the words. You know
Yep,
right away whether or not something lands or not. So when I ask you that question about when you write something, did it ever turn out differently what you thought? I've already experienced that
yeah,
in class.
yeah.
So my last question is, any advice you can give an aspiring new comedian who's about to graduate in about a week from class?
I would say just perform as much as you can, as much, it's a compulsion. It's a tough thing to do just for fun
Hmm.
on the side. I mean, you absolutely can. But if you want to get better, it's like, you're a musician, it's like guitar. You have to practice. You're not going to get better if you do it once a month. You're just, but if you have fun doing it once a month, that's fine too. But perform as perform as much as you can, um, and have fun. Keep exploring. Don't get too down on yourself. It's the beginning. It's like golf. You have five bad shots, but if you have one good one, it'll keep you going.
Yeah.
So, look for remember the good shot. Remember that you can, if you do have, if it is good, if you have like a good joke or a good set, remember you can do it. If you can do one, you can do two, and if you can do two, you can do 100. So,
No. Well, I appreciate that, Graham. And I just appreciate you taking time. I know you got a lot going on. I appreciate you taking the time to join me here on the show. I want to wish you all the best with Pete and me and everything else you have coming up in 2025. And I look forward to next time you're back in this Philadelphia area or back at Soul Joel's. I'll be there
yeah,
again, and I'll probably approach you in that dark corner again
awesome.
too.
Yeah, of
So,
course. Soul Joe's is the best. It's cool that if you haven't checked it out, go check out Soul Joe's in what is it, like King of Prussia? What do you
Pottstown.
call it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Pottstown.
Pottstown,
It's
Pottstown.
close to King
Yeah,
of Prussia. It's about
yeah, yeah,
15,
yeah.
20 minutes west of there.
Pennsylvania. Anyway, if you're in that zone, even if you're in King of Prussia, make the drive for God's sakes. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on your show. I
You
appreciate it.
got it.
Sorry I didn't get to see Rosie.
Well, she'll be here. She'll be here next time, and next time you're in the area, she'll be there to see you as well. So again, Graham, thank you so much, folks. We thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. This week's episode has been brought to you by Doherty and Company Insurance Services for all your business and personal insurance needs. Our friends at Tennis Addiction in Exton, PA, and the Malin Agency, where exceeding expectations is how they do business.